Hello, my name is Jenna McCullough. I am a NSF postdoctoral fellow at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County and UCLA here in Los Angeles. And this video is to do an overview of Adobe Illustrator and how you can use it to improve your scientific graphics. So I'm a self-taught Illustrator user, and I am an evolutionary biologist and ornithologist. So a lot of things you'll see in this presentation often have to do with birds. So I actually started to use Adobe Illustrator because I wanted to make a shirt out of my idea of recreating the New Mexican flag in a phylogenetic tree. I study evolutionary history of birds. And so I made my own shirt for this conference. And since then, I've taken a lot of different directions. I still use it for things like art. So for example, I wanted to embroider this phylogenetic tree from a recent Nature paper. So I downloaded the data, put it into Adobe Illustrator, and colored it so I could embroider it. And so that is the way that you can use it for fun things. But for other aspects in science, I use Illustrator for things like brainstorming and notes. I'll use it for public outreach with museum science and other scientific outreach. For example, different blogs that I'll write or different popular science articles. When I create scientific posters, I use Adobe Illustrator for my method of creating a scientific poster. I also use it for presentations, like for example, to do methods or to talk about results in a engaging way. I also use Adobe Illustrator for things like grant proposals. It includes, some higher level figures or maybe even some timelines or just kind of showing different ways that I'll be measuring different aspects of museum specimens. I also use it for publications. So this is a very complex map about kingfishers that I study. There's a little more simplified things or maybe adding on some birds or highlighting specific points in a scientific figure. And so I use Adobe Illustrator, and sometimes people confuse Adobe Illustrator with Adobe Photoshop. And the biggest difference between these is that Photoshop is designed for editing photos and it's pixel-based, whereas Adobe Illustrator is not. It's vector-based. And so what does that mean? When something is pixel-based, when you increase the size of that shape, you'll see all these little pixels there. And that's because it's making up the circle as a amalgamation of actual points, like colored squares, whereas vectors are lines and math to fill in this circle. And so when you increase the size of something that is a vector-based image, you actually will never have any pixelation. So there's a couple different file types that you're going to be using potentially if you use Adobe Illustrator. The first one, something like, a JPEG, that's a photo, it's pixel-based. You can't really manipulate it. And what this means is that when you increase that file size, it's going to be pixelated. And then you have something like a PNG file. And so that's, typically created images or graphics. You also really can't manipulate this. But when you increase the size, generally, it will not become pixelated. Then there's PDFs, which you might be more familiar with. You can manipulate these if it's saved in a proper format. And so you're not going to lose any type of information. And then there's something like a AI file. And so this is specific to Adobe Illustrator. So if you save things in a PDF, you can share it with people who don't have Adobe Illustrator. But if you save it in an AI file, someone who doesn't have Adobe Illustrator is not going to be able to look at it. So normally what I'll do is I'll work in a PDF, and then I will export final graphics in a PNG file that I will give to other people, and I will keep the PDF file for myself. But I almost never save things in an AI file. Okay, so let's get started. So when you open Adobe Illustrator, oftentimes you'll have this home screen, maybe even some recent files, and you can open a new file. And this document box comes up, and you have the option to determine how big you want it to be. Now, normally I'm working in scientific graphics, so I need to think about the margins, and I'll actually create it in the actual size that I want it to become. And this will just make it be a lot easier in the future. So a normal piece of paper is 8.5 by 11 inches, and with 1 inch margins, you have these widths in inches, and you can change any of these here. All right, so we do create, and you're going to have something like this. So this white square is the margins of your document. Now you can put things anywhere in this entire file. You can zoom out. It's really, small if you zoom out really far. And the thing is that anything that's going to be on this square is what's going to be seen in the final document that you would share to people. So it's really important to make sure that you are dealing in the square that you want to work in. And so you can confirm that this is the appropriate size by doing something called a ruler. So Adobe Illustrator, it has a lot of issues for a new user because you can't just type in anything. Every single key on your keyboard means something. So sometimes when you want to try to find something, you can use the help bar. So for example, I want to know the actual dimensions of this white square, our workspace, and so, the artboard. And so I'm going to type in ruler. And so you can see this. So I've typed in ruler. Oh, let's do show rulers. And something right here has come up. So we can confirm that this is indeed 6.5 inches and it's 9 inches long. So anything that's going to be on this white square will be will actually be seen, and anything off of this will not be seen. So first off, you're going to notice that my screen probably looks a little bit different than yours, and that's because you can customize it. So on the left side here, we have our tools, and then you might have something different up here. This is another way of dealing with text and stuff, things you can customize. And then on this side, you're going to have your windows, and your windows are completely customizable. Now, we can first customize our windows. So for example, I think that the most helpful ones to have here are paragraph, character, align, and stroke. So if I wanted to, here, I'm going to take this out. You can actually pull them out. Whatever you have on this side, you can pull out, and then you can X out of it. So I'll show you how to get that back. You go to help. Well, actually, no, we can just go to window, and you can scroll down. So I pulled out stroke, and stroke is right here. So I click this, and it kind of pops up again here, and I can pull this back into this little bar. These bars can be pulled out or back in with these little arrows here. You can have multiples here. Like this is another little box that you can move around. Again, it's really just your own decisions of what you want. So we can do the same thing. So we go to paragraph. So paragraph is not here. So you can go to help, type in paragraph, and it's probably going to be in type. Yeah, that makes sense too. Window, type, and paragraph. So you could click it, and because I already had it in this right side bar, it's here, but I can move it down if I wanted and such. So paragraph, character, stroke, and align are my favorites. I think everyone should have. And then we have this tool bar here. Now I have on my computer set to where there's a tutorial. So if I have my mouse over one of the tools and I don't actually click it, it's going to tell me what the tool is, and you can actually see it be used. Now, if you see that little character next to the words magic wand, that is the hotkey that you can learn to use this in the future. So for example, this one right here, the selection tool, it's a V. So the selection tool is what we normally think of as a mouse. So anytime you're having an issue in Adobe Illustrator, you just need to press V and you'll be back to a normal mouse. So let's click that. And you'll also see that the mouse changes. So our magic wand, it looks like a little wand here. And then you click V, or you actually click the tool and it changes to this. So let's first make a line. The line tool is right here. And really quick, if you see any of these little tiny triangles, this means that there's multiple tools in that spot. So if you right click it, there'll be different options. And as you can see right here, this is the hotkey that you can use, and that's a backslash. So you can either click this tool or you can press the keyboard hotkey, the backslash. So I'm going to zoom in, and really quick, I'm going to change these. I'll get back to that in a second. So there's 3 different ways that you can make a line. You can click it once, and you can tell it exactly, I want it to be a 1-inch line, and I want it at 0 degrees. And so I've clicked that. Then you can also click and hold and pull out in whichever direction you want it to go. So let's try to make a 1-inch line. It's a little bit harder if I want it exactly at 0 degrees. And then you can, I guess there are only 2 ways. Now I'm going to press my V key again, and you can see that our lines have disappeared. And that's because we don't have a stroke or fill associated with that line. So stroke and fill are the different ways that we color objects in Illustrator. You can change these colors. So first off, this one right here, this is the line, the outer line to it. And then this is what's being filled in with. And because there's nothing, they have this little red line across it. So you're going to be able to manipulate whatever is on top. So here, stroke is going to be manipulated, and here, fill is going to be manipulated. So let's give this a black line. This is some of the more recent ones that you can do. So you can click this, and all of a sudden it becomes a black line. Then you can do the same thing. So I could either move my key or my mouse over it, and here I can see the path. It's this blue line, and so it's just gonna show you where an actual object is. It's not actually blue. So you can click it, or you can drag and try to select multiple things. So this time, just so you can see, I'm gonna do a fill. So I've clicked the square and I press that. And when I click off of it, you can see that these 2 things are different. So they're the same 2 points, they're the same distance, but the thing is that these are literally made up of 2 points. We have one endpoint here and one endpoint here, and the computer's using math to determine this part in between. The same as this, it's 1 point here and 1 point here. And the reason why the fill looks different is because you can't really have much of a fill between something that just has 2 points. Like there's nothing really to fill it in. It's effectively a straight line. But the second you add more points, it'll change. So really quick, let's do that. So you can do something like this. So this is a curvature tool. You can do shift and this little thing under the tilde, which I'm not sure its name. So I've clicked this line and all of a sudden things change and I can add in another point. So once I add some dimension to this, it'll fill in. Now, a fun thing about this is that you can kind of play around and you can add, some fun shapes and stuff. And then also, if you notice that these points here are empty and this point has a little blue dot, that's saying that it needs to be like at an angle. So once you double click this, it'll move. And so the in between these 2 points can either be curved or can be straight. So you can do that to all of them if you wanted something like that. Anyway, to get out of this, you go back to your home key. That's V. Remember our selection tool, a V. And then it's highlighted around and you can click off of it. So you can change other colors. So I've clicked this line I can double click this, and yours probably looks like this. So this is, you can change the brightness, hue, and saturation of your colors. I kind of like working in only web colors because it kind of adds some bounds to it. You can get into some weird color combinations. So I just enjoy working in web only colors for the most part. If you had a hex code, you can add it in here. So there's our purple line, and we can make this have a purple line as well. Another fun thing is you can switch. So let's say we wanted to be filled in with purple and have a black line, and you can switch it like that. It's kind of nice. Okay, so we've made a line and we've kind of, added some crazy stuff to it. Now we can make another shape. So back over here, we have an ellipse, and if you right click, we have a rectangle. So let's do a rectangle first. And that, by the way, to do a hotkey is M. And it's not uppercase. You can just press M on your keyboard and not shift. So I've clicked once, and I'm going to make it be a perfect square of 1 inch by 1 inch. Now I could also press and pull the corner out. And you can see this little thing that pops up, that it's not a perfect square. So it's kind of annoying if you know exactly. Now this thing just came up. So this little pink line is telling us that it's this perfect square, that the length is equal to the width. So that's nice. And you can see here, it's kind of easy to pull away from that. So if you wanted to force a perfect square, you can do this thing where you hold shift. I'm holding shift on my keyboard, and I am able to immediately force this to be a perfect square. And then if I want to get out of that, I press V again, where I can grab this square. I can make it not have any fill, and it's kind of fun. So you can see there's a point here, a point here, a point here, and here. And these aren't actually points. I'm not really sure why they make it look the same, but it's not actual points. There's 4 points together. And then this little thing right here is if you wanted to click and move it, because sometimes when there isn't a fill in squares, it's harder to move things. So like here, I can't grab it, but here I can. So they have the little square there. If you wanted to have rounded edges, you can grab this little tiny point, and you can round your edges. All right, so let's change the stroke. So we have our line here, and we have our square. Oh, oops, I forgot. I wanted to also show you the ellipse tool. So the ellipse is a circle. It's the same as a square in that it's going to make a perfect circle. And the same thing applies here for shift, holding shift here. Or I can click and make a square, or sorry, a circle. Boop, there you go. And again, that was here. And you go to ellipse tool. All right, so let's change the stroke on these. So we've already added these to our windows. So I want to change the thickness of this line. So I click the line, and I know because there's a little blue line that goes through it. It might be easier for you to see the line if it was yellow. You can see that blue line there. And now let's change the stroke. So go up here, and there's this weight. You can change the thickness of the line. You can make it be really thin. You can make it be extremely thin. I think like 0.0001. And so you can barely see that. But let's go back to 1. You can change the corner. So here, the caps, you can change the caps to be rounded or projecting. I find that annoying though. I do just this kind of cap. You can change the corners to be rounded or squared off. You can make it be a dashed line. So here we go. We have 12 point. You can do 6 and then 6. If you wanted it to have little tiny additional things, you can do that. You can play around a lot with this. So you can add arrowheads. So here's an arrowhead there. You can switch it. You can make the arrowhead be, substantially smaller. This is scaled to 80%. That's a way to mess around with your arrowheads. You can't add arrowheads onto this because that doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, oh my gosh, you can. That's cool. I learn new things every day, but I don't really want to do that for this. Let's remove it to none. That's cool. All right, so let's say that we want to apply some of these cool things. So I have this be a square here. Let's say I want to make this be, blue, and I want it to have, a fun teal boundary. And so let's say I want the square to have this style. Now I could go in and see and copy all those things one by one, or I can use this thing called the eyedropper tool. And that's right here. So the eyedropper has the hotkey of I. And so I click the thing that I want to change. I press I and my mouse changes. And I go over here, I click, and it now has that theme. I could do the same thing to this line, and it's just going to have, this thing. And so sometimes there's things that don't apply. So the arrowhead doesn't apply, so it still has the arrowhead here. So you could do that for a lot of different things. Okay, so now we can use some font. So you're going to need to be able to write stuff. And so this is the the type tool. So you press type and something comes up like this. It's always in Latin. To get out of this box on a Mac, you press Command and Enter. And so now I can grab it and move it around. If I want to change the words, I can double click it. And so now that little blue box goes away and I can write, I love birds. And then I pressed Command and Return to get out of this. So I can manipulate this text by going to Character, and I have all these options. So some of these you might not have because I have downloaded them, but you definitely probably have times. So I just started typing in times and I was able to go down here. So I can do Roman, italic, bold. Never actually used New Roman. Anyway, you can change it. You can add one part to be not italic. You can change the size or the spacing. So I love birds and keep your cats inside. Let's say I want to not have this be, I want this to be regular. I want this text to be closer. I can move it. So this is kind of the spacing in between. You can change the color of the text. So let's say I want this to be red. You can, what if you want this to be the opposite? You want this to be white like that. And then here it's really thick, but you can change how thick this is by going to stroke and making it be really small. So that's kind of cool. What's that, a nice black background or a colored background? I mean, it makes more sense for a thicker font, but. So then you can also change around your paragraph. So if you go to paragraph tool, this is left justified. You can have it be aligned in the center. aligned to the right here. That's kind of nice. So right now, when you grab this, it's actually changing the font size. But let's say you want to not change the font size and just change the box size. So this right here, you can double click it to convert the type of text box. So now when I change it, the text isn't changing, but the box it is. So that makes more sense if you have something like this. And when you move it closer, it'll change it where it is on the line. But then let's say you want to make it be bigger. You can increase it that way. Or if you want to maintain the scale, you can again hold shift and change it all together. Okay. So now we're going to make a series of squares and talk about a line. So I'm going to move off of this just for fun. I'm going to click my rectangle tool and I'm going to make a series of small squares. Now I can do this. These little pink lines are coming up. This is to guide us where each one is. And I just made those 3. But let's say I want to make a lot really quickly. So I've highlighted them. I'm going to press the Option key and I pull it out. I can effectively copy it really easily. And I have to let go of my mouse and then let go of Option. So let's try that again. I have highlighted these. I have Option. And if I don't let go of my mouse, but instead I let go of Option, it actually just moves it. So you have to let go of the mouse first and then let go of Option for that to be able to make those squares. So just for fun, let's change the colors of some of these. Oh, actually, I remember what I was going to do. So, oops. So sometimes I want to look at different types of things. So let's do color palette here, and we can just randomly choose. Ooh, this has a bird on it. We can randomly choose some color palettes. And I'm going to do a screenshot. So on a Mac, you can do Command-Shift-4, and you can do a cute little screenshot here. You can go back to your Illustrator and you can, I'm actually going to save it in this little spot on my desktop right there. So it's right there. So I can pull it onto my Illustrator and the thing will normally come up in the middle of the screen. And so as you can see right here, there's this big X because I really just want these colors, but I've kind of brought in the screenshot to help me do that really quickly. And there's this big X, and that is something I call the X of death. You never want to have this X because if you end up moving that file away from where it is, so right now, this file's on my desktop, I don't want it actually to be on my desktop. Well, like I might delete it in the future. And so then I will be kind of up a creek without a paddle if I wanted to open this again. So you don't want to have a link. You never want to have something with an X. So instead of me dragging it here, I can drag it into Illustrator and click it again, and there's no X, which means it's not a linked file. I can copy it. I can paste it. As you can see, they look the same, but they are treated differently by Adobe Illustrator. So let's get rid of this one. And I really just wanted to use the eyedropper tool to choose some colors. Beautiful cardinal. I'm just going to delete these guys. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to kind of move them around. So you can see right here that these squares are angled in that some of them, like this one, is obviously the lowest and this one's the highest. So you can think of it like pieces of paper in a notepad. If you want to change the order of these, you can move them higher or lower in the stack. So we can right click this, and let's say we want to bring this to the top. So we can go down to Arrange, and you can do Bring to Front. That's going to bring it to the very top of the pile. Bring Forward will bring it one movement up. So let's bring it forward up one. So it's now over this one, but it's not on this one. Now, the thing is also showing us the hotkeys. So, oops, go to Arrange and Bring to Forward. So that's Shift and then the little Command key and then a bracket. Or you can do Command key and bracket once. So I'll just show you on my computer, I'm doing Command and bracket. It's gone up one. Same for if you want to go down, it's the left bracket here. But if I wanted it to go all the way down, I could do Command Shift lower bracket. So what I just did, because you can't see my keyboard, is I did this, send to back. That's at the bottom of the stack. Okay, now you can visualize this with the layers function, and it's much easier if you have this deleted here. The layers window is something that's a little bit more complex that you don't have to use, but you can actually see it here. This red rectangle's on top, and this gray one is on the bottom. And again, I can move it to the top, and now it's up here. What's fun about the layers thing is that you can choose to like not see things if you wanted to, but you don't really need to do it. It's a little bit too complex. So let's move these guys up to the top. Oh yeah, and to grab multiple things at once, I've clicked on this guy, I'm holding Shift, and I'm grabbing another one. And that blue square is now around both of those squares. And then I can do the same thing, Command Shift and right bracket. And then it goes to the top. So we can do some other fun arrangements with this. So first off, I'm going to grab all these guys. I'm going to press Option, and I'm going to copy it so you can see what happens. And then I want this whole thing, and I want to move it on its side. So I'm going to grab all these guys, and then I'm going to do Transform, and I want it to be rotated 90 degrees. So there's all these different options here. Move is if I wanted to move it like a very specific amount. Like let's say I just wanted to move it 0.005 inches to the right. So this is previewed. Oh, you can't even see it here because it's like barely anything. So that's moving it. I haven't actually moved it, but I can preview it. So that's easy. And then you could do something like you want to rotate it. I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So that's with a preview. So that's what I'm going to do. This is what it is now. This is what I will do. So I've rotated it that way. And then you can do that again. Notice that, oops. You can do this transform again. So let's see what happens. Oh, that didn't work. I have to have them all like this. So I'm just pressing Command D, transform again. Okay, you can also reflect. So reflecting is based off of the pane. So you can do it, horizontal. So this is what it is now. If you do it like from the middle and do the exact mirror image of that, it will look like that. If you want it to be a mirror image down the center, it would look like that. So you can transform it. And you can also scale it. So scale, if you want it to be, 50% of that, you can make it be smaller, or like 150%. It's whatever it is now. And the important thing about this is that it's not just scaling the actual object size, but also the objects in relation to everything else. And that's something that we're going to come back to later. but the scaling will scale everything exactly how it's next to, like even the space in between these things. Okay, now one last thing with this is, let's say I wanted to make sure that this was always, the exact same orientation. And I didn't want to always have to shift, click, and grab all of these. So let's say I always want this together. You're going to do something called a group. So a group is like making them be one image or like one object. So as you can see right here, my layers thing just grouped these together. It's one thing. I've grabbed this, I've pressed it once, and everything is moved. Whereas if I, didn't do that, I would just be moving one object. And I can go into this group. I can double click. As you can see here, something has changed. It says, oh, you're in layer 1, which we already knew, and we're in a group. So now I can move this around. And then when I double click off of that, I can still move this around like a little group. I can ungroup things like that. And now I can move my square again. You can see it's come back here as individual squares. Boop, it's a group now. It's also helpful because like if you want to transform groups, like it's just sometimes easier to transform things when it's a group. Okay, so let's talk about alignment now. So let's say we want all of these squares in a perfect line with a little bit of space in between each of these squares. Now I could bring them up like this and slowly, methodically move them. And you can see that the little guidelines are telling us how far apart they are. Or you can align them. So I've grabbed them all, and then I go to this align window. And let's say I want them all to be at the top. But I'm like, oh, there's not enough space in between them. I'll move this guy out, grab them all again, and then I'll distribute them horizontally. That's not enough space. I'll do it again. And see, now I have some nice space in between each of these. Let's say I have this square here, and I want them all to be aligned to this square. So I've highlighted them all, and I click. I'm not holding shift. I click on this square once, and you can see this blue line is thicker than the other. And that means we are going to be orienting all the squares to that square. So I want it to be to that square. I can do it again, and I can align it all to the left side so you can't see, but they're all this way, I can horizontally distribute them. So it's nice. It's a nice way to really quickly orient stuff together. So let's make a bunch of different squares. I want them, ooh, you know what? We can also group them. Let's go back. I want them all to be like perfect, and I'm going to group. Boop. And now our trick to really quickly move multiples at once, like this. And I can make sure they're all grouped and I can align them to the bottom. So now, because they're grouped, like they are operating as one thing. And just so you guys know, I was doing Command Z to return. I want to have them be all at the bottom, and I want them all to be perfectly spaced in between. Now, we're going to do something that's called a clipping mask. And if you ever do anything, especially if you use RStudio or R to create graphics for science, you will have to deal with clipping masks whether or not you like it or not. So first off, a clipping mask, you're going to define the edges of your shape. So we're going to make one first. So we're going to do a star. This is just fun. I never use stars for anything except for these types of activities. So, we can do let's do a 6-pointed star, and I want it to have a smaller radius of 1 inch and radius 2 of 1.5 inches. Ooh, wow. So I don't need it that big. I'm going to make it smaller. So this is what I'm going to say. This is going to be the boundary of this image. And what a clipping mask does is it says everything that I've selected that is underneath the clipping mask. So go to layers. You can see the stars at the top. Everything that's underneath it, I don't want to see it if it's outside of the boundaries of the star. So let's grab everything and let's click the clipping mask, or the star that we're going to make be our clipping mask. I've right-clicked and it says make clipping mask. And all of a sudden, anything that's not in that star is gone. Now, it's not actually physically gone. We just are masking everything. We can click it once and actually move it around. You can double click it again, like this thing in here, and you can move. Ooh, I went into the group. That's a little bit too complex. You can move things still in the group. I grabbed the outside of the mask. You can change how big the mask is, but you're not actually changing anything that it's containing. So what the clipping mask does is it controls what you can see of stuff underneath. It's kind of like a hole, like a little peephole into, I'm not really sure that doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, it controls what you want to see. You can get rid of the clipping mask by right-clicking, and it says release clipping mask. As you can see, there's still a little object here, and that's our star. It just doesn't have a stroke or a fill. So that is a clipping mask. So that's the biggest things right now. So we're going to do some other fun things. So first off, we're going to think about this penguin. So the thing I'm about to open is a figure that has some penguin data in it. And I'm going to want to include a penguin on this figure. And I'll show it to you in a second. So I have Googled penguin vector, black and white, because it's going to be easy. But very important is that if you're ever going online to find something for a scientific figure or something else, you want to make sure that you are not going to be stealing other people's work. So one way that Google has made it easier for us to not steal other people's work is this tools bar here. So you click it and you can go to usage rights and you can go to Creative Commons license. So I've chosen to put vector in here because it's going to make it more of a simplified image. It's going to be easier for us to choose. And I kind of like this guy. So I'm going to click it and I'm going to right click. I'm going to do save image to downloads. It came up right there. Just go back here. I've clicked this and I put it into Adobe Illustrator. Now notice, this is JPEG. So when I pull these off, I can't do anything with it. When I go into my layers, it's just an image. This is what I mean when I say it's lossless. I can't actually deal with any of these layers, or these are obviously shapes that someone's made. But there's a really fun way to get around that. You can do this thing called image trace. So to get to image trace, you go to window, scroll down, go to image trace. Comes up like this. And there's all these presets, it's kind of just, you get to decide what you want. We can just do default. There's going to be black and white. This is a black and white image, so it's not that big of a deal. The threshold here is, there's some aspects of this I don't really understand. I kind of just mess around with this. I want, to have a tighter fit to the paths. I want, less corners. And I don't want small pixels. This will all make sense. This is a pretty simple image. It won't be that big of a deal. And I'm going to trace it. As you can see, some things went away. Let's go back. I'm going to do Command Z. And I'm going to do Preview. So I press Preview. I see their eyes disappear. Now I can always make their eyes, but maybe I want to add. Maybe I want to add more corners. Oh, the noise. All right, so it's this, the noise. We want to make sure they have eyes. Okay, now, because we've done this, it's technically traced, and I'm going to do something called expand. So this is an image right now. You can look at this layers. It is image. Go back to image trace. And press expand. And all of a sudden, all this blue stuff has added. All these little things, these are little lines that is made to be things. I click off of it, and I can pull out our penguins. This is the background. I can delete the background. And now I'm going to right click, and it says ungroup because it's just made a group. We don't really need those groups. And then we can grab this guy, pull it around. And I don't want things to move around, so I can do my Command G, which again would be grabbing all this, right clicking. Oh, it's already a group. So, but you would right click and there would be something that says group here. Let's say I want to make this penguin yellow. Or nope, teal. I love teal. Boop. Okay, I actually don't know why that did that, but it'll be fine. It'll work out. I'm going to grab all these guys. I'm going to put them in here for now. That was super weird. How did I do that? I did not like that. All right, I'm ungrouping everything. Sometimes, let's release. So sometimes when you do stuff, it makes these compound paths. I don't really know why it does that. I'm not a graphic designer. I just use this. Let's try it again. Oof. What if we did out of web colors and did this? This is like changing. So this is like in a weird spot. So if you did this, I'll just deal with this later. So normally it works. You can email me if you ever have this issue. Okay, so we are going to edit some of these figures. So these are some figures that I made. Well, actually someone else made. Stephanie Aguion, my postdoc advisor, and I edited a little bit. So as you can see here, this is a PDF and this is a PNG. So first off, we are going to open up both of them. Let's first do the PNG because I just want you to see. So I've opened it up here. It's on this tab. And I click it. And again, I go to layers. And it's just one layer. This is what it means when it's lossless, is that it's just a single piece of paper. You can't manipulate anything to it. Unfortunately, this could get a little bit pixelated there too. However, let's open up the figure in the PDF. So right click, open with Adobe Illustrator, and all of a sudden you see different things happening. That's because one is a PDF and one is a PNG. All these things are not lost. You can still edit them. So there's different things that we can edit about this graph that I changed. Let's just say I want everything to like this. Oh, sorry. I want to change what this says, and I want it to be body mass parentheses G. So I can click this, and sometimes when I try to click something and something else happens, so like let's do it again, I can see that I can click it. It highlights in blue. I click it once, and there's this blue box that goes around it. That is typical clipping mask behavior. So you right click it, and you can say release clipping mask. Or you can just double click and try to click it again. So I can go body mass G, and then I can click this, which is this box, and I want this to be centered. I click this one box one more time. I go to align, and I go in the center, and it's moved. Or I could change the font if I wanted. If I wanted to do Helvetica, I could do that. Right. There's other things you can do. You can change, like for example, there's all of these lines here. And maybe you don't want these lines, you just want the actual data. So I've clicked on this and it is again in a clipping mask. Again, I see this, click once, and it's that clipping mask there. So this time, let's just release that clipping mask. There's still a little box around here, and that's just something you can choose to delete or keep. So I've clicked again, and the same thing happens again. And that's because when you produce something in R, it just, every single time, it just adds so many clipping masks. So you right click, and it says release clipping mask. And now everything is all highlighted with blue. I click this guy again, and he comes up. So I've gotten rid of my clipping masks. I call it clipping mask hell. Okay, so we want to make all of these lines be invisible. So I've clicked one, and I want to do this thing called select all. Select same, and I want everything with the same fill and stroke. So notice I've selected these, but this box goes down here. And it's getting these lines too. So like, that's cool because now I have to do less work. So I click this and I say no color, and they've disappeared across the entire figure. I can do it again. Click this one. So the reason why these weren't picked up is because they had a different stroke. This is 5.53, and the other one was thicker. We could see it with our eyes. Fill and stroke, you can see it goes across here, and none. Now, you could delete them all. I choose to keep them in case someone later says, you need to have these lines. And so then you don't have to do it again. You could also, with these tick marks, draw lines, which would be incredibly annoying, but you could. Now, let's say you've shared this to your advisor, and your advisor is like, I don't like this orange color. I want it to be black. So you could go and replot it all, or you could do this. Oops, don't do that. I can grab this and this here. Don't move your points. I grabbed it, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to move it over here. And this is also a classic thing. There's a white square at the back of that thing. So I've copied and pasted that single point. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to Option, hold it. So this is what it all is now, and this is what it's going to be. So when you plot something in R, you often have these two different things. Oh, this is grouped. I've ungrouped it. You have these two things. It has some transparency to it, which is why you can, see through it. You can get rid of transparency by going to the transparency window. Where are you, transparency? Transparency. It comes up here. You're like, ugh, I don't want transparency. So if it has 100% opacity, it means it's not transparent. Okay, so you want it to be black. Or, let's do this dark gray color. Okay, so it doesn't matter where it is here, but we're going to ungroup. So we want to change all of the things that are orange to this gray. So you can click this, and the same way we did those other lines, select same. And here, I, again, prefer doing fill and stroke. So again, something has no fill and this orange stroke, that's exactly this weight. Now let's see what we've collected. We've gotten all these points and all these points. So then we do our eyedropper tool. Boop. You can see they're all gray. Let's do this one now. Select, same, fill and stroke. Oh, let's double check. What do we have? We've gotten this guy here now. That's fine because there you go. Now that isn't the best color scheme, I will admit that, but that was just to show what you could do with it. So I don't recommend this color, but you could quickly change the colors. And so obviously with Adobe Illustrator, don't fake data, don't move points around. That's just bad ethics. Don't do it, even though you have the power. You can click this guy, do the eyedropper tool. You can move them to be aligned. Remember those penguins? We can bring in these penguins. That, what just happened right there was we were in a clipping mask. I pasted this penguin and it was being bound in by the clipping mask. So I did Command Z. I clicked out of the clipping mask and I added the penguin. And now we can press Shift and move the penguin down. This is body mask for penguins. Okay, so we have this. Another thing when I had mentioned the penguin over here was like we were using Google, but you can also use this website called Philopic where you can look up any organism that you want. So for example, I like kingfishers. So let's look at kingfisher. And we have Alcedoathus, which is a common kingfisher. We could look at public domain. Oh, you like this one. That's a fun one. And I can do this. So these are PNGs. This is a vectorized file. This is a scalable vector graphic. And I can right click and download linked file. It comes right here. SVG. I've clicked it. It comes off and I can choose whatever other color I want. Beautiful. I could do a line around it. Boop. That line isn't very thick. That's fine. Let's change the line. Say, but if I want it to be 2 points. So this seems weird because like, wow, 2 points and I can still barely see it. I wonder how big this physically is. Remember our rulers? Just do Command R. And again, we did that. You can do rulers with show rulers. This is a hide rulers, show rulers. And I'm like, that's weird. 32, is that in centimeters? No, it's in inches. This is substantially larger. So if I copy this, I wanted to put it for some reason on my multi-panel figure, it's gigantic because it's physically larger. That's why you want to make sure you're working in the appropriate size. And as you're scrolling down, you can see that that line is a lot thicker than it used to be. So there you go. Other things that you might want to do with a panel. You might want to add panel like A, B, C, and D. So you can go to your type tool, click A. You can make sure that it's the appropriate font. Let's do Times. Boop. Here's an A. You can move this to be, oops, don't do that. B. You can C and D. You can align these to be at the appropriate alignment. But yeah, it's up to you on how you want things to be aligned. There you go. And then if you wanted to save this, so like let's pretend that we've made this figure and it's perfect. We're not going to change anything else. We could go to File, and you can export. You can export first as, and then you have these options. I work in a PDF until it is time to actually export a PNG. That's what I put up for scientific figures. Okay, well, that's it. Feel free to Google me and ask me questions if you have any questions about this video. Thank you.